Welcome to Wager Talk TV, wagertalk.com. I'm Scott Spreitzer, and we've got a very special guest in our midst as we do our Wager Talk Friends each and every week. And today it's none other than Jim Feist of jimfeist.com. And I got to tell you, Jim, coming in here, sitting on this panel, it brings back a lot of great memories of sitting on a panel with you for at least 10 years that I was part of that long-running Proline TV show with guys like Jack Snow, Al Bernstein, Dave Koken, Glenn McGrew, right down the line, Bobby Gregorka, who I haven't seen for a while, Wayne Root. That show in that format ran for 30 plus years.
36.
You guys are still doing videos at jimfeist.com. Tell us a little bit about 30 years of Proline and the fact you're still doing the videos at the website.
It's been a crazy run. I never thought when I was in Florida and I started in the business, I basically did it. I was gambling myself, and somebody said to me, "Why don't you open one of these services?" And I said, "What the hell? Let's try it." And not to really make money, but to just do something and pass on what I was already doing. 50 years later, and I'm still doing it. It's kind of crazy. The run has been amazing. It was a lot different back then. That was pre-cable, pre-cell phone, pre-internet. Like we used to have to pay people to pick up newspapers so we could get out-of-town news. That was the only way you could do it. It's so much different today. I mean, I could go for hours talking about it, and maybe we will now. But
tell the other guys.
Well,
tell the crew.
20 minutes. But it's really crazy, and it's been a great run.
Right.
I've really enjoyed it.
Well, speaking of the difference between, let's say, 1975 and in 2015, guys like yourself, there was a handful. There was only very few. I mean, you look at Twitter now with social media, there's a capper on every corner, so to speak. When you guys jumped into this business, there was a few of you. Maury Doc Mosman comes to mind.
Doc, yeah.
Yourself, maybe 4 or 5 guys.
Otis Goss, Gene
Slovacek,
Richard Bomsey, his brother.
Richard Bomsey.
Right.
Yep.
They were Mort Olshan.
Right.
There were about 12 people in the business.
When you got started in let's say the early to mid 70s, I don't mean to date you, but when you got started, you walked into a sports book, for instance, you'd walk in, I'll give an example. You go into Sam's Town on Boulder Highway, you see a whole slew of games, college football, college basketball, what have you. They've got their own particular order. You drive up to the Strip, you go in the old Stardust, the world famous Stardust sports book. You look at their board. They've got their own particular order. You kind of revolutionized that. I don't know how you got all the casinos in Nevada to come together and say, we're going to have one particular rotation. It was the Nevada sports schedule that you got them all on the same page on, and still to this day, everybody runs that same order.
It was the schedule wars. That's really what it was. I mean, there was a competing schedule, and some people liked or wanted to stay with that. And it was more political than it was anything quality. And with a lot of hard work and a lot of handshaking and deals, and we got people to change, and we went in that direction. We've kept it that way for many, many years. And it's really necessary. You can't have competing orders, or this whole internet thing with offshores and everything would never work. And thank God it worked that way.
A couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. There's a whole slew of them, but some of them you probably don't want to be public. Just kidding. But I wanted
You're not going to bring that stuff up, are you?
Not from the 80s, no. But the Shark Club and Botany's, as you happen to mention, some of the clubs in Las Vegas that we all used to partake in.
That's right.
But I wanted to ask you about a couple of things because you spoke about the difference in acquiring information back then as it is, as compared to now. And you used to be able to find an edge when folks would fly in with these newspapers, and now it's not that easy. But you used to do a show, and I think it was with the late Pete Axthelm, is that correct?
That's
on
right.
ESPN?
Yes.
And I believe you guys covered the USFL.
We did.
So you were on ESPN in the 80s. You were on CNN. You did Crossfire in the 1980s. You helped put together this New York State Lottery as a consultant at that time. So it seems to me like sports betting was given more of a mainstream platform back then, and then all of a sudden in the 1990s, and up until maybe the last 4 or 5 years, all of a sudden all the mainstream media was shying away from us. Now we're starting to do national shows again, mainstream shows again. Do you think in the next decade we will see a how to beat the spread type of 30-minute show on a major network like ESPN or Fox?
We're seeing a little bit of it now, and it has had a little bit of a resurgence, and it's all about politics. We have 2 major parties in this country, the Democrats and the Republicans, obviously. One party is very much more conservative and has a conservative lean. This is bad, that's bad, this is bad. We have to outlaw those sinful things. And if they're in power, either Congress, Senate, or the White House, you see everything going in that direction.
Sure.
It might happen again. You never know with the United States, with these parties that are so different. In many ways, they're different. In some ways, they're very much the same. So I can't predict that. I never thought that we would not have legalized poker, that we would not have. I thought 10, 12, 15 years ago, we'd have gone in that direction because people want it. It's easy to tax. It's a voluntary tax. And it's not a gun to your head type of tax like they prefer to have. And I thought we'd have legalized everything back then, and I've been wrong.
We've seen the fantasy sports situation just blow up. Every time you turn on a sporting event, you're seeing fantasy sports. It's kind of like
now
the poker.
they're being investigated.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
That's a whole different show.
Yeah.
We talk about the poker explosion, which kind of reminds me of what's happening right now with the fantasy sports explosion. Poker explosion 10, 15 years ago. You came up to me probably 12 years ago. We were just, probably before a show taping or something talking about poker, and you really hadn't jumped into it yet, full-fledged, and you told me, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get involved, and as always, you jump in when you put your mind to it, you learn quickly, and end up in a recent World Series of Poker. I know you finished around 400th out of about 5,500 entries. The folks who just see poker on TV around the country, who tune in and love it, the ESPN Final Table, don't really know the grind of what it takes to go through a World Series and finish like you did. Tell us quickly the grind of it.
The grind of it is probably the reason I don't do it as much as I would like to, because when you see the final tables, most of the time you're looking at 20 and 30-year-olds that can handle the hours. When you get into the main event of the World Series, it takes you about 35 hours approximately of play to reach the money. That's just reaching the money. That's the top 10% of the group. That's not reaching final tables or anything like that. So it's a lot of hours, a lot of mental fatigue. It's not physical. You're not sitting there picking up bricks or anything. It's all mind. It's your every hand, reading the players, reading the cards. It is a mental grind, and you're much better off if you're 20 to 30 years old doing it than if you're 60 or 70.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's 17-8 to start the NFL season. He's 33-21 to start the college football season. You can find those plays at jimfeist.com. He's obviously the owner purveyor of jimfeist.com, and we really appreciate you taking the time coming down. And it's been kind of cool to shoot I almost said a bad word there, but to shoot the breeze or the bull with you for a little bit and give the people an idea of where it all came from.
I thank you for inviting me. It's good to be back on the air with you
Absolutely.
after all those years that we did Proline together. It's
Good stuff,
a lot
Jim.
of fun, and good luck with you and your new ventures.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. And don't forget, Wager Talk video all weekend long. Brian Leonard, Marco D'Angelo, Jim and I have a couple of game videos. Stick around for that and more. We are Wager Talk TV.